Rest. Pit, clink, pit, clink, pit, clink, is the sound that my natural left foot and new bionic right make as I cross the balcony outside Triple M. That door is already fixed, the one that Fluffy and I tore through, destroying it. I think I'll have to add maintenance to the ever-growing list of staff who are getting raises after our recent run-in with Terran pirates. To think that they were able to repair all the battle damage while we were voidside. Miss Toon objected when I revealed how much I intended to increase her pay, but not as much as she did at her interview. There was no haggling. It seems that having a devoted friend group and a loving partner is helping buoy her estimation of her worth. I cross the threshold and make my way to the common room. The door opens to reveal one very tired Dom, one very tired Sahaz, one very tired Canine, and 4 very tired humans, all in various states of repose on the furniture around the coffee table. There are 4 in the room, however, that don't fit this mould. There is an excited Zumbe, no, Messia. They've all insisted I'm to call them by their first names or epithets. It's taking a little getting used to. Anyway, he's looking out the bowered window for the moment we come into his home system. It's quite sweet. Apparently it's been some time since he last saw his family and home, by means other than a holoprojection. The second and third, who aren't a picture of exhaustion, are the wall mural version of me and a roaring Fluffy, whom I'm sat astride, charging down a mountain with the setting sun of Earth framed behind me. Messia has painted a bone-crushingly heavy-looking suit of armour onto me, more from its original, Terran-appropriate shape to fit a Requali body plan. On my back there is a second set of entirely ornamental wings. My right talons heft a lance, that looks like it would mass more than my body, with a red and white banner, shimmering in the imaginary wind, attached just below the tapered spearhead. My beak is open and my face is fixed in a fierce, silent battle cry. I ought to find that mural very flattering. Somehow it's a little embarrassing. Is it because that Tequal looks like she knows what she's doing? She looks brave. Looks like she wants to meet her foes in glorious battle. Looks like she doesn't care if this is her last day alive. Doesn't look like she's flying by the tips of her wings and praying to all the 17 that she doesn't die this day. I have no idea how they managed to find the time to paint such a spectacular mural, what with the volunteering they've been doing in the canteen for those we rescued. Messia was the artistic lead, and apparently dedicated many hours to it though. Hasn't been any less visible in the canteen than the rest. They all insisted that the moment needed to be honoured, and couldn't wait the weeks until they had more free time to receive its commemoration. When a roomful of Terrans insists on something, you don't object, even if you don't see the sense. I suspect that a few Terran all-nighters were required. I don't know where they get their energy, even if, from the state of most of the room, it isn't endless. The final person, being, individual, the final one who isn't the very model of depletion, is Twyla, projecting herself onto the couch from Jenny's hollow in the form of a young, humanoid woman. It's ever so slightly irksome that she identifies herself with humans more than the species of her builders and captain, but it does make sense. Humans designed her, a human woke her up, the first friends she ever had, after she woke up, were a majority human group. I suppose I should count myself lucky that she seems very gracious and understanding about me not having removed her sentience limits previously. Twyla, you saw me coming, didn't you? Noticing my presence, the exhausted Triple M's make to stand and require telling that they are not to disturb themselves on my account. That done, Twyla answers, I did see you coming. I stayed because I wanted to spend time with you, with a sweet smile. But the law has such general apathy to enforcement that there is almost no chance that you would see the inside of a courtroom, even if you message a video confession to every authority in the galaxy, and it's only marched for appeal at the agitation of the Terran representative of the Parliament. I think it very unlikely that anyone in this room would turn you in, and if you ever did stand trial for knowingly permitting me to exist, you could claim that you believe the holographic projection of a very pretty young woman, always with the Triple M's, to have been an entertainment application. You had no idea it was a full sentience AI projecting herself into a room full of friends. She's right, of course, about everything. The law banning full sentience AIs has seen almost no enforcement in the years since the war. What enforcement it has seen has been in instances of people constructing full AIs for nefarious purposes. Without another word, I take a seat between, Brunhilde and Twyla. I've never really understood why the GU makes full sentience illegal in the first place, opines up Krish. Every time someone tried to make one before us, they went mad. Like, immediately. The GU just assumed there was something inherent about wires, circuit boards and data chips that made any sentient intelligence they were compelled to host lose its sanity and go deranged, answers Jenny. Really? Then, what made ours different? Queries Krish. I answer. What made yours different, dear boy, is that you were building friends first. You wanted them for company. Once they were your friends, they were happy to perform services for you. We, by which I mean every other species in galactic history, were building servants first and friends never. If when I was a child you had asked any garden world the question, do you want to be friends with a computer, they would have thought you were suffering from one of the very few conditions that can induce psychosis in the minds of biological garden worlders. You gave us the secret, after the peace, to constructing an AI that has memory and computing power to match or exceed a sapient, and the versatility and freedom of thought, experience and sense to match us as well. Sentience intelligence demands purpose. Servitude is a purpose it frays at. Companionship is a purpose it tends to embrace wholeheartedly. You just need to sincerely want the AI to be your friend, not your servant. We wondered and marveled at the things you were able to do with such little computing power during the war. It made sense when we discovered your digital warriors. Krish's eyes widen, but he doesn't seem to have the energy to respond with more than a single word. Deep. Quite, I say, with a cocked brow tuft. Can I offer you something to drink, Cap? Queries the tired Victor, from the lovesick beside Toon. Her head rests in the crook of his neck. Her upper right hand encloses his left wrist, his left hand enclosing her wrist in turn. His right arm is around her shoulders, and his thumb and forefinger stroke tenderly back and forth, along the span of her long, pointed, midnight blue ear. I chitter. Even if you were not currently pinned in place by 220 centimeters of sleeping girlfriend, whom it would be a crime against decency to disturb, I would still have to refuse. Victor looks groggily down and says, "Oh shit, she's asleep?" My mirth renews. Then he turns those green eyes, ringed by dark circles at me, and asks, "Why would you still have to refuse?" I answer, "Toteki should be hatching soon. If I drink alcohol, it will contaminate my crab milk and will negatively affect her development." "Wait," interjects a bleary Brunhilde. "Will Cry breastfeed?" She looks, with a comical lack of decorum, at my chest for breasts I don't have. "No, dear girl, we don't. We crop feed. It serves a similar function. I believe that many Terranavians do the same." "Do I want to know the details?" she asks, with narrowing eyes. "You don't, trust me," responds Victor, his eyes closed and his head resting against the seat back. "You Terrans can be weirdly squeamish sometimes," Hassiak quips. "It's really funny how, when you watch your films, you're wrapped by the scenes where people are getting horrifically, violently torn apart, but your faces scrub in disgust whenever they depict excrement," she laughs. True enough. Every human face in the room screws up in revulsion. I imagine Toon's would too, were she awake. "Oh, I can explain both of those phenomena, I believe," I say, hesitating. "Oh, I'd love to hear this," mocks Brunhilde. What I now notice is a hoarse voice. "I actually would like to hear this," replies Hassiak, with genuine, seeming interest. I start. "Well, human excrement is so pathogenic that it is hazardous even to them." "What?" Hassiak attempts to interrupt. "They have colonies of bacteria in almost every part of their bodies. It's to the extent that, by cell count, the average human is composed of around 90% non-human cells, though given the average disparity in mass between their cells and the colonists, there works out to be only approximately 5 to 10% non-human biomass. No place in a human's body is more bacterial than their gut. Their excrement is a third bacteria by dry weight. These colonies are usually fine where they are, beneficial even, but if they get from one place in their body to somewhere they're not supposed to be, it makes humans very sick, deadly sick. This is despite them having the most potent immune system of any thus far studied. That's an immune system they need because of the virulence of Terran gems. Few species are in love with their own excrement, Copography being a necessity for those few sapiens who engage in it, but the reason humans are so revolted by excrement is that it's one of the few things that can harm them. One human leaving is also enough to entirely annihilate the ecosystem of a garden world, which they discovered early in their counter-offensive in the war. It's quite fortunate that the planets, which they learned that were recently established settlement worlds and had few residents. It would have been much worse if a species cradle world had been the test case. The refugees were mercifully few, and following that, the UTC dropped ludicrously stringent biocontainment protocols, and instituted them absurdly swiftly. and there were no more incidents. Hasiak thinks for a moment before asking, "They can't get rid of these bacteria?" I answer, "They could, but they would die soon after. I describe them as beneficial, but it might be more accurate to describe them as essential. Their biology is so accustomed to their virulent squatters. There are many vital functions it actually relies on in its microbiome to perform. Attempts to sterilize humans of their microbiome always end one of two ways: the death of the human, or the restoration of their microbes. The only way to allow Terrans and gardenworms to share space is to permanently deny all microbes any means of transmission from them to us, which Twila does an excellent job of," I say, with an appreciative nod to her, which she returns. Hasiak thinks again, then asks, "And their fascination with violent mutilation?" My supposition is that that's their subconscious wishing for an edification on A. how to avoid being violently torn apart if they're ever in an analogous circumstance to the characters in the story. Doesn't matter how fantastical the universe. Humans can pull lessons on anything from anywhere. That's why I think they're so fond of comparison and metaphor as a species. And B. how to effectively tear someone apart, violently, for if the need should arise, I say, with some self-satisfaction. Not looking up, Victor says, "As always, Cap, your outsider's perspective on Terrans is entirely fascinating. If a bit intense for the room's current energy level. Did Quarry not want to come? Did you invite him?" Victor and my mate apparently bonded, at my hostel bed. I'm glad. It's nice that the men in my life have become friends rather than work colleagues or friends of friends. Quark is at the point where Victor has nicknamed him with an E version of his name. A high honour! They seemingly connected with each other by swapping stories from their time knowing me. Why does that make me anxious? I answer, "I invited him, but once I explained the arrangement necessary to secure me from the Merklets, he declared it unsafe and said he would come only after we..." The sound of warp fails, and there are a brief few moments where I feel a rapidly rising panic, remembering the last time we were pulled from warp. Then Missia gleefully turns to the window and waves us over, saying, "Guys, we're here! Come, look at my home!" Everyone gets up. Toon wakes from the clamour, releasing Victor from the love seat. We come to the forward window and see Zanzibar Mapaya. Its equator ringed by a wide, scorching desert, where liquid water cannot exist, and even Terrans aren't hardy enough to make home. Its poles are capped by oceans of liquid water, and between the oceans and the desert are broad bands of verdant green. The northern settlement band is our heading, on the shores of the Polar Ocean. It's stunning. Stark, but stunning. Some part of my mind still rebels at the idea that this world has billions of sapient beings who call it home. "It's beautiful, mage," says Victor simply. "Terrible looking," yips Sam excitedly. "I guess, if you squint hard enough, buddy," comments an amused Aran. No, Brunhilde. We're giving him an appreciative scritch between the shoulder braids. Victor kneels beside me, bringing his head to the same level as mine. "Cap, this person we're picking up, the ODR sent them because they really think it could be..." His expression is one of apprehension, as if he is not allowing himself to hope. Many times over the years, Victor has expressed sorrow at the idea that only one Death Warder is known to have ever born sapiens. He's used to words like cosmic accident, mistake, error, to describe the uniqueness of his species. Now, it seems like they might have... They think it's likely enough that they dispatched one of their top experts and offered the Bright Pluma Charter to take them almost all the way across the galaxy. It's not certain, but it seems like it could very well be our first contact with a Death World. Victor stares blankly forward with his weary eyes fixed on the marble of yellow, blue, and green. I turn to Twila. "Twila, how long will it take to maneuver to Zanzibar Mapaya sublight?" "Travelling at the intersystem speed limit, it'll take us 9 hours, Captain." I raise my voice to say, "Alright, everyone, you heard the woman. Rest, now. I can't have you dead on your feet when we arrive. Go to your rooms or form a cuddle puddle. Don't disturb Fluffy and the Merklets, though. They need their rest too." The room is rapidly cleared of Death Warders and Rough Warders, leaving me alone with the AI projection still coming from Janine's abandoned holopad. I turn to her and say, "You dropped us a Terran sleep cycle away on purpose, didn't you?" She gives a cheeky shrug and a grin. "Who's to say?"